I think, can you not hear us at all?
That's fantastic.
So now,
all right, I can see
silent.
our levels.
Goodness.
Yeah, we're good.
So they couldn't hear us, so we couldn't.
No, okay. Well, we could answer again.
Well, we'll just start over. So anyway.
All right.
We don't know what we're doing. This is why there's supposed to be some. Now the sound went off again.
I was like, these levels are a little high.
Usually there's somebody monitoring this for us. I'm going to have to make Shelby do it. Hold on, because they're busy doing other things.
Okay, can you hear it now?
Which is why I don't usually let Christian come down here when I'm doing things like this, but I thought we might need him because it just got redone.
Right?
Hey, we can hear you now.
I need you to monitor this and let me know if anything's going wrong because no one's paying attention. And it's been kind of horrible so far. We look great, but other than that, it hasn't been good. So we're going to start over, okay? Thanks. Bye.
Fantastic.
Anyway.
Coughing in the mic.
So hello, everyone.
Hello.
Presumably, you couldn't hear anything we were saying. Either that or we couldn't hear it. I don't really know, so we're just going to start over. So hello, I'm Brian Cain. I am one of the publishers for Warlock Press, and Lilith Dorsey is one of our authors.
Hello.
The book that I've been holding up, making no noise with, is her book that we published, and it is a republish of an older book. When was it first published?
I want to say 2004.
2004.
Long time ago.
It was Voodoo and Pagan Traditions or something like that?
Afro-Caribbean Paganism.
Yes, and so she's updated the title and the book. So even if you've read the original, this is a must-do. Just like Christians, it's been redone, and they're new and improved. So there's a lot of new information and experience put into it, which I'm sure I'll do with my book someday. You know, you come back and look at it and you'll be like, okay, this is different now, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I love the cover. I love all of our covers where we can get the authors on them. And it's just it's probably one of my favorite covers, you know, because I don't actually like my picture on my cover. It served its purpose. Lilith was just telling me she's originally from New York, and you moved to New Orleans when?
Yeah, in May of 2020, so like right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I was saying...
But you've been coming here for years.
Oh, yeah. Like, I think I was coming here 5 or 6 times a year, you know, and I had bought a house before everything shut down. I think we closed on March 1st of 2020, and then everything in New York City shut down. It was really rough. So, you know, we just packed everything in the truck like Thelma and Louise, and we drove down here in, like, sketchy conditions.
I think that's how you have to do it. You know? New Orleans loves adventurers.
It does.
So I know you've been coming here for years, and I think of you as being just here, you know, because I always saw you. So one thing I have to tell you is Lilith has the magical power of invisibility. So for years she was like in my periphery, but it was like a legend because I could never find her or see her anywhere. She would just disappear into the crowds. Now she can't escape. But Lilith has been ingrained in New Orleans, I think, spiritually for a very long time. I know you've worked with a couple iconic people, including Papa John and our own Miriam.
Yeah. I've been with Priestess Miriam. I've lost count. I think it's like 28, 29 years now. And I was dancer and choreographer for Dr. John for several years. He was like a dad to me, so I miss him terribly. But I got to introduce the two of them, and then they were King and Queen of Crew de Vue, which is one of the first carnival crews that march here in New Orleans. And I got to ride on the float. I was like the float bitch. It was great. I had to like elbow people out of the way who was like, I'm going to be the float bitch. I'm going to be... No. I was like, it's me. It's me.
I'm taking this for myself. Well, most people don't realize that there's a bit of a religious tradition surrounding our carnivals and things. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had people ask me questions about, like, what's the most magical holiday for people in New Orleans? Is it Mardi Gras? And I think Mardi Gras is a whole nother thing. It's about sort of equalizing society. For so long, you know, the black people here in the city couldn't mask. They couldn't march and parade and, you know, do masquerade for carnival. So a lot of these, you know, alternative crews sprung up. So there is this kind of honoring of the ancestors. There's this kind of sort of hearkening back to the first rebellious traditions and doing what we wanted to do in the streets. So I always get up and do Mardi Gras morning with Sunpai Barnes of the Northside Skull and Bones gang, which is amazing. So
it's too early for me. I've seen the wonderful pictures. The only way you'll ever find me there is if I stayed up all night long, which is a possibility.
We always go by your house. I keep thinking that, like, oh, if you're not home, we should just post up in your house for a bit on Mardi Gras morning. Save me from going from my neighborhood to that neighborhood.
One way to the other. Yes, it's an amazing tradition. I've never encountered it. They never come knocking on my door.
No, we don't knock on your door. You'd probably be asleep. You were away this year, but you'd probably be asleep. One year, somebody fell in a manhole cover, and they had to pull her out, like right in front of your house. Yeah. I was like, oh.
Why do they have the manhole cover up?
It was just not secure, New Orleans streets, and somebody had just stepped on it the wrong way, They get a lot of people going out, probably about 2,000-3,000 people from my estimation, maybe more, So that many people, like, trying to follow a parade all over the streets first thing in the morning, drinking and partying, it's a bit.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
I do love that about the city. I was just realizing today that it's Easter tomorrow, because that's me, I just realized. And it's a fun day to go out and play.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm going to stay home. Today will be my play. So anyway, Lilith, tell us a little bit about your initiatory tradition. I know that you are a voodoo priestess and you have some other experiences. Do you want to tell some of our audience?
Sure.
Do you have comments here?
Oh, yeah. Sure. Excuse me. I am initiated in La Regla Lucumí, which most people refer to as Santería, not properly, but that was with my Santera Oshun-African who is no longer with us, unfortunately. And I was initiated into Haitian Vodoun. I was the first person she ever initiated by Gros Mambo Bonnie Devlin. She was a master drummer. She used to drum with Olatunji. I love her dearly, and she's also no longer with us. And as I said before, I've been with Priestess Miriam for 29 years now, so just saw her a couple of days ago. So I think, this was always my home, I think, because for me, what I call it is a spiritual gumbo, really. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of traditions, especially in New Orleans, that take a little piece from here and a little piece from there. And for me, it doesn't really seem like appropriation. It's more appreciation because it's been going on for hundreds of years. So, we get that in all over the city,
Oh, it absolutely is a melting pot. I always call our coven here swamp witches to outside people. Like, well, we'll go to the UK and we'll be we're just swamp witches, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because even aware of a particular tradition that comes from Britain, being here, everyone's touched by it.
Yes.
Everyone's touched by certain practices or certain things that are here, and so it enters in, it finds its way in. Could you tell us a little bit, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you from the book, right, is could you tell us a little bit what the difference between New Orleans voodoo and Haitian voodoo is?
Okay, so I think certainly here in New Orleans, because we're talking about enslaved people that started the traditions, so again, it's more of a mixture, a bricolage, a gumbo, whatever you want to call it, of different traditions. After the Haitian Revolution, which was in the late 1700s, the population of New Orleans doubled, like with this influx of black people from Haiti. So there was a huge kind of voodoo influx. There was indigenous people here, the Choctaw and the Chickasaw, and their spiritual traditions, their herbal traditions about the area sort of blended with the New Orleans way of doing things. And then again, we were a French colony, we were a Spanish colony, we are part of the U.S. now. There's so much here that mixes together. So instead of it being a family tradition more like in Haiti, whereas my parents honored these Loa, I'm going to honor these Loa, we're going to worship together, we're going to move forward. It's more of like I did. I found my teacher, I found, I have my own godchildren now in our spiritual house who study with me. So it's like, we find our parents in the tradition and then we move forward. So that to me is the main structural difference. I also think that because of the makeup of the city, we incorporate other traditions. Some people accuse me of dilettantism because I have all these different initiations, But when I started, even when I started in the Voodoo Spiritual Temple, there were 2 temple drummers there that were Santeros. So if they're going to be there, they're going to be doing ritual, they're going to be drumming. Obviously, some of that spirituality is going to cross over into what we're doing.
Finds its way in.
It does. It's like you can't leave those energies at the door and then all of a sudden decide to do something else. So we incorporated more of that. With my own house, I've got spiritual godchildren that are Latinx or, other kinds of traditions. Some of them are even initiated in La Regla Lucumí, so we can't leave those spirits at the door. We honor them in a different way because it's the New Orleans way of doing things, and they honor them in that way with other groups. But for us, we don't forget about them. So, if there's a feast day for Oshun, I'm a daughter of Oshun, we celebrate that if we can, either alone, separate, or together, and with drumming and feasting and dancing and all of that good stuff.
So I've had friends who, since I'll tell you a little question, first of all, I can have for you, because when I was first coming to New Orleans, preparing to come, I really didn't know anything about voodoo, and I was curious about it because I was stepping down as high priest of the coven that I was running there because I was moving, and I didn't know what I was going to do when I got here. I thought, maybe I'll become voodoo. I didn't know. I was on an adventure.
Right.
That's not what happened, obviously, but my imagination was rolling. So I started looking at videos. And I have a very different perspective now than I did then. But
oh, sure.
All I could find were white people talking about being in voodoo in New Orleans. It was just groups. I could not find a single African-American online at the time that was in it. And it's funny now because I think that there's been a flip on that in some degree. But why do you think that is? And do you think that it's mostly still white people in New Orleans practicing voodoo?
Okay, well, you told me you wanted me to dish on this show, so I can dish on this. There are still a lot of not black people practicing. I think what I'm going to dish about is I did a interview once with Al Jazeera, right? Like, this is not a conservative white organization. I did an interview with Al Jazeera about Marie Laveau, and I had consulted with the interviewer multiple times for hours on the phone. We were talking about Marie Laveau. And then when the article got published, I was disappeared, and some of the white priestesses in the town got all the credit and all the thing. Like that. And the reporter called me and said, "You've been whitewashed." And I was like, "I've been whitewashed by Al Jazeera? Like, is this really a thing? Is this happening to me?" Like, I couldn't believe it, and I'm not saying that I think white people can't practice. I obviously have white people as some of my students, but that's on a case-by-case basis. Are they respectful? Are they dedicated to the community? Are they committed to this? And I think that when we cross over, and I was just telling somebody this morning this, when we cross over into an all-white group, then people who are dark-skinned are not going to feel welcome there. They're going to feel scared. It's going to be like that horrible story where the woman went, away with her white friends for a weekend and ended up dead. Like, we can all see that happening. It's like a Jordan Peele movie because it's all in our minds already, and I don't like that. I don't like that any black person would not feel welcome in their own traditions. So that's kind of how I script it. I'm not going to co-sign anybody and be like, oh, okay, all white people can practice, because, again, it's a case-by-case basis. Not all black people can practice. That's just the way it is. Like, what are your intentions? Are you dedicated to this house? Are you dedicated to these practices, to the ancestors, to honoring them with a commitment, even if it is uncomfortable or difficult? And that's what I think it is. But yeah, there's a lot of white priestesses in the area. Maybe they have one or two token black people, like on South Park, right? And I think that, they could be good people, some of them. They could be real, again, shitbags, some of them, sorry. Some of them I can't stand, and honestly, I'd hit them with a garbage can if I saw them out on Decatur Street right now. So
we've still got more wine. Anything could happen. The night is young. The night is young. Somebody might get a garbage can.
I don't like that they're taking away business from those of us who are people of color and dedicated to providing accurate information, providing respectful information, uplifting the entire community. And I really don't like that. I really don't like that.
Well, there's, we're in a place where we're able to, if you're open-minded, be educated. Most places in this country are whitewashed, right?
Yeah.
But we are in a place where the African-American presence is strong and celebrated, and I think so. I think it's a duty. What do you feel about people who are on the opposite spectrum? Now I'm being very controversial. I don't know how to word this. People who might be African American, but they're just using it to make money, and they're not really plugged in, or they make false claims about it being in their family, and maybe it really isn't. And you see through that. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I think there's a number of people that are just in it for the money of all races. I think we've all got those spammy Nigerian priest emails about like, please send your bank information.
Well, they want to be your boyfriend.
Yeah, I know. I do want to go on 90 Day Fiance one of these. If anybody's out there, I'd kind of like British citizenship,
Me too.
or Irish. It's, I'm a little flexible. But so I think that it's become a trope, and I think it's not only Black people, like.
No, they're frauds everywhere.
Yeah, no, one of my teachers used to say, these people are crazy. They can't make money any other way.
That's possibly true.
And I'm like, well, it is true. It's definitely true.
Laurie Cabot used to say, having gone as far as she has gone, to where she's been wearing the robes forever, she's famous. Mayors have spoken about her publicly. She has a tattoo on her head. She says, it's not like I'm going to be hired by IBM anytime soon. It's dumb, right? It's dumb. So people can find you. When we went to Ireland, and we were on the ferry going across. We talked about crazy people who couldn't make money any other way, so we talk about ourselves. We were going across the ferry, and the security guards are being really weird with us. And all of a sudden, one of the Irish guys goes, "So you're warlocks, are you?" They were having a joke about it.
Beautiful.
We're like, "Oh my God!" They looked us up. They looked us up for some reason.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
So yes, you're once you've gone into the magical business field, I think you are kind of rubber stamped in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That is true, and I'm okay with crazy. I don't like it when people mislead people, and then there are criticisms that we have in the community that aren't legit. So I have another question that follows up on in your book. I had a friend, I'm not going to name names, who was a Haitian priest, and he did not believe that there was voodoo before the Haitian Revolution in New Orleans. However, I've been presented with evidence that there was, and I just want to know what your thoughts are. Do you think they're distinct, or do you think they're absolutely tied together?
Oh, I think there was definitely voodoo in the New Orleans before the Haitian Revolution. Yeah, I think that's pretty much a given, and you can go back in the records and see people that, were practicing what they called voodoo. I mean, if you look at the different kinds of origins of the word, it basically means just like spirit or sacred energy, So, and a lot of those practices that ended up in Haiti came from Benin, came from other parts of West Africa. So obviously people were here before the Haitian Revolution that practiced those kinds of things. I think, again, like I just said, with this huge influx of the Haitians, then it became much more Haitian dominant. And I didn't really, you kind of touched on this before, and I didn't really answer it. One of the most famous Babalaos, John Mason, I was at a talk with him about, sort of coming together as an African traditional religious community and making things more public. And, his statement was just that we stayed in the basements and we kept it a secret because it was dangerous. We were persecuted. It was illegal here in the city. Even I remember getting shut down when I first started to come, 25, 30 years ago, getting shut down for drumming in the city. So there's so many of these practices that were illegal that we had to keep it a secret. And I think in a lot of ways, even today with this, can I put a white face on it? It's more easily consumed. It's less threatening somehow. If I look at this blonde booby bitch.
If you only knew about white people's bloody, horrific sacrifices, you wouldn't think so.
No, of course not.
Messy sacrifices.
Of course not. But they want something that looks like a Barbie doll out there to talk about voodoo because that makes it more okay. It makes it more acceptable.
Sometimes it's a broken down Barbie doll.
Yeah. A sloppy, disgusting Barbie doll.
We're not talking about anyone in particular. So you do go in, and one of the things she does in here in this book that I think is really wonderful is that she goes through. Like, you work with the Orisha, and you work with the Loa. I'm a little bit more familiar with Loa than I am Orisha.
Yeah.
There's a difference in some ways between Orisha and Loa, but do you think they sort of meet in the center somewhere too?
I mean, it's hard to answer it publicly because I've answered it publicly before where I said there were similarities and people have turned around and said, that means it's the same thing, Yeah, and I think you even get this in other cultures as well. I have an anthropology degree. I think you can see even, is this energy from this part of Europe the same as this energy from this part of Europe? It's similar, but it's not the same. I wouldn't, if you're in circle, like, does it matter if I call it this name or that name? Yes, it does. The same way that if I called you the wrong name or you called me the wrong name, I'd be like, what the hell is going on here?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, I think, there's a difference between Aphrodite in like one part of Greece and Aphrodite in another part of Greece.
Yes.
Some of these gods that have been look at Isis. One of the reasons I love Isis so much is because she's like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
She's been every race and she's been everywhere.
Yes.
But there are different vibrations depending on what you're tapping into, and multiple names and pronunciations. So,
of course.
What do you think the difference is between Haitian Loire and New Orleans Loire? Because there are some distinctions there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think, and it's confusing too, because we have houses here that are strictly Haitian Voodoo. Mm-hmm. People came from Haiti, in the recent memory, and opened up their shop and do things in a strictly Haitian way. We have people that, like Priestess Miriam, who have been here. I think she's in her 33rd year now. That has been doing things with what she learned. Her husband, Priest Oshun, at the time when they started, was from Belize, so there was a lot of Obeah in the tradition, and then it's been influenced by everything that happened here in the 33 years that she's been here, and that's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. But I think that there's a distinction in the same way that I can go to a French restaurant, I can go to a Creole restaurant, I can go to a Spanish restaurant. There's going to be a completely different menu. It might even be in different languages, So that's the variation to me. Like it's a cultural difference. Mm-hmm. And I can honor the river or the waterfall in one way over here and in a completely different way over here. So it's similar because it's both the waterfall, but it's not the same. And that's pretty much how I reckon it.
Yeah, subtle energies. It's like playing music. We can all sing the same note, but it's going to come out a little differently. So I was going to invite callers once again, since it's not on the screen. If you do want to be brave and call in and ask Lilith a question. And I do want to tell everyone Lilith is her birth name. I know she gets this all the time because of the raven bear claws out in the world. But Lilith is her birth name. I love that. Mm-hmm. So the number is 309 Goddess, and we can find out if the phone's working. If you want to call in, say hi, or have a question about anything. I want to take a second so I do not forget to discuss some of her other books. I mean, my favorite one is the one that we published. I make more money off of it. And we'll be selling it forever, so that's a good thing.
Yay.
But she's got some other books here, and I'm sure you can discuss other ones. I love this book, Water Magic. We've been selling it for a while, and I'll let you talk about that for a sec if you like.
Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, I'm an anthropologist, and Heather Green from Llewellyn had approached me that they were going to be doing an elemental series. And did I want to talk about water magic? And for me, it was kind of a shock because I'm a fire sign and then air rising and air moon. So I'm like, water, what? And then I realized that no, because I'm a daughter of Oshun, that's made me connected to the river. I've always lived near the water. I lived in not a very black part of Brooklyn, but Bay Ridge, where they filmed Saturday Night Fever. So I lived right there where the river goes out and meets the sea out at Coney Island. So I lived in this area that was by water. I moved to New England for a while. I've lived right next to a giant lake in the Providence River. And then I'm down here, which is below sea level. You can get to the canal it's like a 5-minute walk from my house. You can get to the river in a 15-minute walk from my house. And then, for those of you who aren't familiar, you can get to the lake in very quick drive from my house. So there's all this water around me. And I just literally dived into it like an anthropologist and went, what's interesting about Japanese culture and having to do with water. And I ended up with, I don't know if you got to this part, but I ended up talking about there's these Japanese anus-sucking vampires that come out of the water.
I haven't read that part.
And I was just like, oh, okay, this is where my research has led me today.
They've always been the most interesting culture. Really.
Yeah. So, and it was interesting too because, it came out during the pandemic and I thought it was going to come out and I was going to go to Nepal like one of my best friends had and go to the sacred lakes there and, and it was just like, oh, okay, the sacred water in my backyard. And at the time.
I did make a lot of drunk pool videos during that time. Looking back, I don't know how any of us survived it with our sanity. No.
Oh, sure, totally,
No, I love it because I've got the same thing, I don't have any, I've got a Cancer moon.
Okay.
Outside of that, I'm not really, wouldn't have thought of myself as a water thing, but I'm strongly drawn to it. I live in 2 cities right on the water. Got a lot of the gods and goddesses I work with are associated with water. It's not anything I ever thought about.
Right.
My mom says when I was just even a little baby, I had no fear of water. I would always be drawn to it.
Wow.
And I've only had one experience of the Loa, and it was at a voodoo ritual, and it was the priestess was possessed by La Serene, who took quite the liking to me.
I believe that.
She took quite the liking to me. And then another priestess, in a story I'm not going to fully tell,
I'll get it later.
In our pool, decided I was a priest of Mommy Waters.
Okay.
Right on. She might have been crazy, but it was a fun night anyway. We were all a little crazy, I think. But I love I definitely am a devotee of Isis, and she's, I associate her strongly with the Nile, and oceans, and a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So, love this book. I haven't read the other ones in the series, but I did this one. This one I have not read, but I do have it at the house, and so I got a chance to flip through it. Sorry. And I should read more because I'm still a little ignorant on some of the Orishas. I get confused. First of all, I am aggressively white, and it takes me forever to learn certain pronunciations. But I love a couple of the Orishas. And is it, I'm not going to say it, Yemaya? Yemaya, see, I told you. She's a water goddess, right?
Yes, she is. She's sort of the top of the sea or the top of the ocean. She's sort of that, gentle, nurturing, kind mom, but don't piss her off.
But don't piss her off. Well, that's water, isn't it, really? It can be very dangerous.
It is.
So one of the things I find interesting is, you don't hear this with Loa, but with Orisha, some of them are classified as gods or goddesses by some people, and other people don't classify any of them as gods. What are your opinions on that?
That wasn't a face for the wine. That was a face for that statement. To me, I think that's putting a European framework onto an African traditional religious concept. So if we look at Orisha, it literally breaks down to Ori, which means head, and Sha, which is sort of the root word of Ashe, which is the universal sacred energy that's in all things. So what we're talking about is the energy of the universe. Yes, it's a divinity, a deity, a god per se, but I think that for some people that's offensive because this is a monotheistic culture for so many people. So they still go to church, it's Easter Sunday tomorrow. They still go to church, they still have those practices, and then these practices are separate from it. So I don't call them gods or goddesses necessarily because I think that that's, again, sticking a foreign framework.
Idea on it, right? Very Hellenistic, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that in a lot of ways, Celtic culture has that happen to it a lot because I don't think it was as Hellenized as as it is now.
Even the word Celtic culture, it's funny.
Yeah,
I called friends of mine in Ireland when I was writing the book about I would like an Irish writer, preferably female, to write about some of these energies, divinities, whatever. And they were like, who? I was like, the Celtic ones. They're like, we don't know what this is. I was like, you've lived in Ireland for 30 years. You don't know what I'm talking about. But again, this is like an Americanized concept of what we've put on, traditional Irish religions that have been in place for so long.
Because the word Celtic is Roman in reality. They would have probably been the Gaels or Gaelics or whatever. But I think that happens a lot to them because when you start reading, there's a book called The Fairy Faith or something like that. I can't think of the whole name right now. It's iconic, so it'll come to me. But if you really study the fairy faith in Britain, that is one of the things that sort of survived within Christianity. It looks a lot like Loa in the sense that there's many different houses. There was supposed to be, even in Ireland, divisions of certain places that were ruled over by certain kings and queens of the fairies, and they all had their different houses, or the Seelie and the Unseelie. So it reminds me of that same idea, whereas I think in the modern occult, we do approach things from a Hellenistic viewpoint. I mean, I am very Hellenistic, so, it's our way of doing it. Is that Aphrodite? Is that this? And sometimes you have to look at it through the lens of the culture. Do you feel that New Orleans Voodoo, the culture of New Orleans Voodoo, is thriving or surviving? in the face of all this Haitian voodoo and you know what I'm
No,
saying?
I know. I mean, I think it's getting more and more underground. You know, I mentioned I worked with Dr. John. You know, we probably wouldn't even be talking about New Orleans voodoo right now if it wasn't for him singing about it and, you know, having his Gree album in the 70s and things like that, really bringing it into the popular mind and making it okay through music. And you know, I remember when I first started talking to him about it, he said that, like, a lot of his teachers had gone underground. Again, the thing I was talking about before, for safety, for fear of persecution. You know, it was never a really good paid gig. I can tell you that, for any of us. So I think that a lot of times these people disappeared or couldn't continue financially and economically and socially in a way that we can today. So on that note, I'm happy about it, but then again, there's more fakes, more frauds, more, you know, people think they can Google it and then it's okay. You know, you and I have talked a lot about initiatory tradition, and for me, it's an initiatory tradition. I don't think you can just read a book. There was a
So if I come out in a year and say my grandma taught me, you're not going to believe me?
That's a whole nother thing. It's not New Orleans voodoo, and you know, and for me, I'm still gonna need to know that you have a teacher in order for me to wanna
But
totally
she died.
be like,
And I had to burn all her papers. Sorry, I'm being very naughty.
No, it's
we
fine.
Have a call.
we have a call.
We do.
Okay,
So
yeah.
hopefully you're still
All right.
there. So we're going to take this call and see how it goes. Hello, you're on the air.
Hey, Brian, it's Peggy Lou from Florida. It's great to see you online again. I've missed you.
Hello, thanks for calling in. Do you have a question
Hello.
for Miss Lilith?
Yes, I do, from Miss Lilith. I'm curious as to. I'm a lone practitioner because I live in the woods right now, but I'm trying to contact land spirits or attempting to. But I was wondering if you know of what they are in this area. It's on the east coast of Florida. And what I should be mindful of.
oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think that the simplest way, obviously, you could go and do a whole bunch of research. It's not really exactly where you are, but I do have, you know, ancestors that were Seminole people, which was also in part of Florida. We talk about Zora Neale Hurston coming from Eatonville, which was one of the earliest black towns in Florida. So there is a lot of... There is a lot of...
I'm sorry.
I don't know what that is.
What?
Keep going.
Okay.
Eatonville, it was where a bunch of asshole, excuse my language, white people murdered everybody in the town and pretty much wiped them off the earth. It was awful.
Yeah, so...
No, okay.
I mean, that was Zora Neale Hurston's hometown. So, and they still celebrate her today. So it's this really kind of healing of some of the tragedies. You know, you look at the Seminole people and so many of them were displaced. So for me, my best advice to you, without going and turning to the books, which a lot of are faulty anyway, is to go and look at the land, look at what's growing in the land, find out what is, you know, native to your area in a plant way, because that's going to tell you exactly what spirits are there. So, you know, get yourself one of those plant finder apps or a plant person that knows what's what, and check it out and see what medicine that was for, and see what you need in order to heal yourself and heal the land and thrive in that particular location. You know, everybody talks about, you know, whatever, spirit of place and things like that. And I think that is one of the simplest ways that we can access that. Here, look, I'm going to make a big giant announcement on our show tonight. I've been working as one of the people that's helping to implement and design a garden for this year's Jazz Fest. So if you're out there, please come and visit. Like, this is epic for me. Somebody said to me,
Where is it at?
Jazz Fest in New York. It's in New York. In New Orleans, it's 500,000 people go to Jazz Fest. So it's actually the largest festival in the United States. So for me to be able to help support native plants and things like that in the area, no, it's not a spiritual gig, it's an actual practical gig. And I can help point people to the native plants in this area and how they were used to heal and help people and things like that. So I'm just so happy to be involved with the project. But I think this is good advice for people wherever they are. What's growing there? You know, what's poking out of the dirt and saying hello to you. And
You
that's
also started a food garden, right?
I did. I have a community garden here in New Orleans. We're always looking for extra pairs of hands and donations and all of that lovely stuff. Especially since I'm just one little tiny woman.
I'll give it a fertility blessing, but I can't.
Oh, you are a beautiful soul. Hey, us older women need to stick together. And I wanted to say something too about, if I may. The good news is the old white racist people are dying off. So then all that shit should be gone forever. I hope.
Not fast enough. Do you have any other questions?
And I'm saying that. And pardon me. And my other question is: do you know who I'm going to spell it. Oshoshi is? It's Oshochi.
Ochosi is an Orisha from, they worship Ochosi in Brazil, they worship Ochosi in Cuba. So Ochosi has manifestations in a few different African traditional religions. Ochosi is the spirit of the tracker. The short answer is that Ochosi is the one who helps point you towards your proper destiny. That's the short answer.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I will be buying your book.
Oh,
and Brian, I love your book. I've read it twice. It's awesome.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you for calling in, Peggy.
And one more question.
Oh.
Where do we get her book at? You didn't tell us where to get her book
actually
at.
A very good question. So I prefer it if you buy it from us, and you can get that at hexwitch.com. Or you can get it at omensalem.com and order it directly from us or any of our stores in New Orleans or Salem. However, you can also get it on Amazon, and you can do, is it Ingram and Newleaf?
Yes,
If you
yes.
want wholesale. Probably lots of different bookstores. Now, I've been actually amazed at how many mine have popped up in.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
A lot more than we know, really. But depending on where you live, if you live out of the country, you have to go to Amazon, though, because we're just starting to work on international shipping.
Nice.
But it is actually with our whole company, so we'll eventually...
If y'all ever want to see the woods in the swamp, I've got like 50 square miles of woods behind me that's untouched, so you're more than welcome. Hit me up on Facebook.
We'll be right over. All right, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Let's see if I can do this correctly. Drop, I think.
Anytime, Brian, anytime. Bless be, y'all.
Bye. There we go.
There we go.
I was afraid, I guess we can call her back.
Oh, okay. Look at that. Like, hey, you said this. We're calling you back after.
If anyone else wants to call, the number is 309-GODDESS. Don't call Lilith old, though.
Yeah, really. I know. I was like, both of us were like,
she was talking to me.
okay.
I think she was talking to me. Old ladies have to. You all know I'm just really an old British woman. That's really what's happening here. It's all a clever disguise.
I know.
Anyway, thanks for calling in. That was great. Totally lost my train of thought there.
I know. I know.
A little bit of a whirlwind, Peggy. But yes, our phones work. That's amazing.
That's fantastic.
So I had something that you might be able to help me out with. It's a very strange question. You probably can't, but I found this on accident, and this is before your interview, so I wasn't really prepared for it. So I was reading a book called A Witch Among Us by someone who's not really well known. Her name is Lois Bourne. She wasn't known as an author, but she was one of the high priestesses of Gerald Gardner.
Okay.
And most people don't know Gerald Gardner actually did come to New Orleans, and he was very interested in voodoo. We just don't know what happened. We don't know. He was always an amateur anthropologist. He wrote He wrote books on Chris Knives that were actually really well accepted, and he lived with certain Aboriginal cultures and really studied them. So who knows who he met here or who he didn't meet here? We don't know. But Lois came here as well, and she writes about it in her book.
Okay.
So this was in the 50s.
All right.
And she was invited to a voodoo ritual, and she writes about it in her book. And it was out of town, and there were all these people, and she talks about them going into trances, and she was really intrigued by it, and also a little freaked out.
Yeah.
You know, but the story just sounded, they took her out, and there was a lot of people.
Sure.
So they took her out of the city, and it was in the country, and there were a lot of people there. She said there were 50, 80 people there, all different kinds of races and things, and it was very elaborate. They did sacrifice chicken, and she didn't want to be a part of that. She was still respectful of it, but she talks about it in great detail, and I think, who were these people back then in the 50s? Like, it was going on here in that way, and this was an underground thing, obviously, because they brought her out of town. It wasn't a tourist thing. And I thought,
No, of course.
who was doing that then? You know,
A lot of people were
Yeah.
doing it. You know, when I first came to town, I've taken a lot of gigs. That's a whole nother story. But I had a gig working for this person who told me his Boy Scout troop used to go out to this shack on Lake Pontchartrain that they told him was Marie Laveau's house. So they would trek out on the lake and go visit Marie Laveau's house. And this was one of the, old money, whitest people you're ever going to meet. So I was like, this is interesting. So I think that, it was always underground. But, and again, a lot of them disappeared. There was sort of a rise in the 30s and 40s with this whole kind of commercialization about hoodoo and voodoo. And I think that was the first time we really saw people in this town even talking about it, even to the point where somebody like this woman who wrote the book could go to a ceremony openly. Although Marie Laveau was said to have open ceremonies for people of all socioeconomic classes, all races, and things like that. So I think it was always going on in the town. It was just, who knew about it? It's like all the good parties, right? Who knows about it? Where is it?
Yeah, but, was it a really elaborate tourist? She didn't say they asked her for money or anything like that. So
all right.
She didn't write about that if they did.
Yeah, of course, right?
But, have you heard about this guy? I'm going to get it wrong. He was very famous before, I think it was before Hurricane Katrina. Chicken Man?
Oh my gosh, I was just talking about Chicken Man the other day. Yeah, I knew Chicken Man. Chicken Man was a friend of Priestess Miriam. We were talking about him this week. He was also a friend of Dr. John. He had a lot of misfortunes and everything over time. There's even an article about him in one of our local free magazines this week, like, here's Chicken Man. So a lot of his sacred stuff is still in the Voodoo Spiritual Temple because Priestess Miriam had a hand in his funeral services and things of that nature. So I didn't even know that. I was like, you did the funeral? So, but yeah, we had a lot of, Mac would call them characters that travel around the city. And there would be the banana lady and the bead lady and the chicken man. And Mac even had Chicken Man on stage with him once, biting the heads off chickens like Ozzy Osbourne. So, and they
He was
almost
literally biting the heads off chickens.
Yeah, and the police showed up. Yeah. Somebody was telling me that story the other day.
I didn't hear that one.
I mean, I didn't make this up. You can look this up, people.
No, there are.
So
one of my priestesses was the high priestess of something called the Religious Order of Witchcraft. You might have heard about it at some point. It was here. It was a local thing that was started by Onita Tubes. That's a whole different subject. I'm not going to bore you with. But they had a person. Just like the nature of New Orleans, the order was founded originally to be like a magician's order for women. But New Orleans found ways to enter in. And so one of their members, they always called her Sister Liz. And I always wondered if she was associated, because the only thing I know about Sister Liz is that she sacrificed a chicken to Beelzebub once. This is the story, right? She supposedly is the one who brought all of the folk magic into it. So she had this with her already wherever she got it. And I know she was put in an insane asylum once, and she was kicked out for starting a coven in the insane asylum. So these are the characters.
I was like, life goals.
Yes, I've never met Sister Liz has long since passed, but I just know her as a story. Yeah. And I actually was given her necklace.
Oh,
so
wow.
I feel like I have to tell the story. And I do think she was crazy. But yes, the local characters.
That's beautiful.
But these local characters, whether they were tapping into the spirit of place or whether they were inheriting something, it was going on here.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the greatest things about this book is there are very few books that talk about New Orleans voodoo.
Yes.
And Haitian voodoo and other things and make it understandable to people who don't know anything about it. And I have the utmost respect. I mean, voodoo is a religion I actually respect, even though I don't officially sacrifice anything. The way they do it, primarily, I have the utmost respect for, not the messy white people, sacrifices who kill chickens for love spells, but when they're doing it for a community feast and things like that, I don't see anything morally wrong with it at all as a meat eater. And they know what they're doing. Because when you go over to Haiti, and you've been there, right?
No, I've never been to Haiti.
I thought you said you had, sorry.
No, I just have Haitian initiations, but they were in this country.
Well, some people think you have to go there for...
Oh, yeah.
Christian has a joke about that. He's like, can't you just bring the dirt from Haiti and sprinkle it on the ground like a vampire? You've got to bring the dirt with you, the coffin. I think Haitian voodoo people don't think that way. I think that's a white
I mean, you look at right now. I'm good friends with a lot of members of the band of Ram Haiti, which is one of the most popular voodoo bands in the world, and they are here in New Orleans right now because of the unrest in Haiti. So I think that it's always been difficult to go to Haiti. It's more difficult now than ever before.
Oh, I wouldn't go there now.
So I think and my initiations are in Haitian Voodoo are very beginner initiations. I'm not a priestess in that system. I'm only a priestess in the New Orleans system, but I've been that for 20 years now.
Well, I think it's important because I think that from my vantage point, I think it's something that should be preserved.
Oh, of course, of course.
We have another caller from somebody named Kodiak Little. Are you ready for this?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, we're going to take this
All
call.
right.
I don't know if we're supposed to say their names, but I did. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Hello.
I'm doing well. It's good to hear your voice again, Lilith. And hi, I just heard from you, Brian. I just talked with you on the panel. I always love hearing you speak, always. I just want to know when the audiobook version is coming out.
That's lovely. I would like to say right now that I have offered to help move this along, and so if we can get a serious path to that, I would appreciate it.
Do you want to do it yourself?
Yeah, I do want to do it myself.
That would be hard. I think I can make that happen.
Yeah. I even found a good studio in the Bywater.
My book was done in audio. I think it's the only one that has been done in audio so far, and we had and I didn't want to do it myself, so we hired a nice British man to do it, and that was fun. I don't know what he looks like, but he sounds terribly attractive to me. But
nice.
Yes, but I think people enjoy it better if it's in your voice.
Sure, so and I would love to do that. I would really love to do that.
That's an easy fix.
Yeah. When I look at my sales too, really, my audiobooks outsell my print books at this point.
People love them. I have people in my life who listen to my book.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
Yeah.
But,
people buy both, and I'm just like, really?
Some people, I do have a person who commutes and likes to listen to books while they're commuting.
Nice.
Because if you've got a long drive, that's a great way to do it. I've never done an audiobook myself. I probably should, since my eyes are going.
Mine
I've got readers now.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
I should have readers.
I know.
I just
did you have another question for Lilith? Did we lose her?
I think she's gone.
Yeah. I guess that was
They're gone, sir.
I don't know if the call dropped or if they just hung up.
Okay. I did want to say this, though. I since I'm dishing all on this show, I did have some of my Irish friends tell me that they had, African traditional religious items that were supposedly from Gerald Gardner that were in their possession.
It's possible. It's very possible.
Yeah.
He was an amateur anthropologist, which most people don't realize. I mean, the guy who discovered Seti's tomb there was a period in time when anthropology, and you can speak on this better than I could, was a British rich man's hobby, and
until very recently.
Yes, and so sometimes they didn't know what they were doing. People just let them do it because they had money, and they just went in and bulldozed things. Probably lost a lot because of these experiments, but Gerald Gardner fancied himself as an anthropologist. I don't think he ever had any real schooling.
Yeah.
But he did actually write a paper on these Chris knives that was supposedly very good. Maybe he's just the only one that did it. But he was interested in other cultures, so that is possibly true. He had a large collection, most of which was sold to Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum.
Okay.
And then some of it was retrieved later on, and Raymond Buckland actually had his own museum. And then that was retained here in New Orleans for a little while by some weird rando tradition that was like keeping it in a shed. And then that stuff was saved, and then it went somewhere else, and it exists now. So he had a lot of stuff that got scattered. Ripley probably still has some of it.
Yeah.
I know one of his wands and one of his scourges is in the Ripley Museum in New York, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I think it was New York that I saw it there.
All right.
Gardner's.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yes, that's what happened. So yes, he could have. How he got it, what he did, we don't know. We've no record of what he did in America.
Yeah.
We know him and his wife came here. There's not even an inside story on it that I've ever heard of.
Right.
But he was interested in it. That doesn't mean whether he found it or not. But I thought it was interesting that Lois Bourne did find something.
Sure.
And she wasn't looking.
Right.
So he probably did have some encounter.
Yeah, of course.
Wouldn't that be funny if we found out all this British witchery was from New Orleans?
I always talk about this when I do an interview, especially with you or somebody else who's from a British-based tradition, is that like there's a wonderful book called The Devil's Own Mirror, and it's the comparison between African things and, UK Celtic things. It's fascinating. It was written in the 80s, a long time ago.
We all, it's like all of the gods and the spirits and humans are related to each other. We've just taken journeys. Some good and some bad.
It's true. It's true.
And we're here, so you can find it. I come from a bit of a different place, so I do feel the desire to preserve the Alexandrian tradition, the way that it was passed to me.
Right.
But it's not a cultural thing for me.
Okay.
Like it doesn't have anything to do with culture to me, other than its own counterculture that exists as of itself.
Sure.
I don't. Yes, it is a tradition that started in Britain, but it's a tradition that believes in reincarnation and believes that our gods were basically everywhere in some form or another. So that's how I think of it. But it does have some British roots because that's the land in which it was fostered.
Right.
But here we are in America, and I can't do anything else without it being cultural appropriation.
I mean that's the bag we're left with, isn't it?
It is, because we've got so many things going on. But there was something that you were talking about earlier, and I don't want to sidetrack you as the topic, but I have found African Americans who are interested in initiatory British craft are very intimidated about feeling like they can join, should they join, and embarrassed if they want to. I really hate that so much. So that's one of the reasons I emphasize. I understand it from a point of view, an outside point of view, but it's not the way we believe. Like we don't have any genetic thing there at all. So it's because we believe in reincarnation. I mean, who knows? I could have been anything, So, and probably have been many things. We forget for a reason. But I think that when I do remember, I know I have been things. Like I was joking about my hair color last night because I always have a strong desire to either I'm naturally blonde, haven't been this blonde since I was a child because it got darker as I got older, but it was blonde. So I'm naturally blonde, that's why it fits my tones well, but I very quickly wanted to dye my hair black and started doing it when I was 15 years old. And something happened to me, and when I was in Massachusetts, I was like, I should be blonde. I need to be blonde. I need to be blonde. Lovely. And then I got on Star's show last night, and I hated my blonde hair, and I wanted it to be black again. And I was on a show with where I was one of two white people on there. Everyone else was dark complexion, dark hair, and there was something in me that's like, why do I look like this? There's a part of me that hates blondes. Funny. There's something in me that hates blondes.
That's hysterical.
And then there's another side of me that thinks they have more fun. So I'm always combating it.
It's a fine line. I was blonde as a baby, and I know it's blue now, but it's been blonde on several occasions.
The blue hair natural.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Actually, it's funny because I'm also wearing a little blue.
Yeah.
We didn't plan this. It's the water.
We did our makeup together.
So, other projects, other books that you might be doing now? Because I think you've written more than this, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. But those are the only print books I have. I mean, there was the original copy of the Voodoo and Afro-Caribbean Paganism, which I just want to say this for people who are looking at it, it really is a completely different book. If you can find the original, please send it to me because they were going for $500, $600, $700, $800, which I used to say I'll sit on your lap and read it to you for $800. No shame. No shame. Cash though, So, but there's a couple of ebooks out there. I have a cookbook. I have a book about and again, this is a topic for another, no shame. I was in sex addicts for a while. They threw me out because I'm not really a sex addict, but that's a whole nother story.
I'm going to hear this one. I don't know why I never thought about it.
My sponsor released me. It's fine.
It would be a great place to meet. It would be a great place to meet people with Interesting hobbies.
I used to go with Hasidic Jews, and I'd be like, my name is Lilith, and I would watch them like recoil at me. But anyway, again, topic for another day. But there is a book about, I think so many people shy away from 12-step programs because they think it's Christian, and it's not. It's really just about a higher power. So this is all about accessing that higher power, whatever it is for you. Maybe it's nature, maybe it's goddess, maybe it's something else that you can't even really define. And I wanted to write a guide for people who were going through program. I mean, there's hundreds of different programs now, and I think
for everything.
And I think it's helpful to have that connection to divinity, to spirit, to higher power. And this is just, ways for people to access that. It's called 55 Ways to Connect to Goddess. So
fabulous. Are you working on anything new that you
I
can
am.
discuss?
I don't know whether or not I can discuss it. I don't know what's in the contract, but I am working on my next book. It's due very shortly. I should probably be writing right now. But I will say this is my little spoiler alert, right? It's about divination in some form. So, I've been a diviner for almost 40 years now professionally. So I think that there's a book that needs to get released out of me, and this is what I'm working on.
How long does it normally take you to write a book? I'm horrid.
If I really buckle down, I want to be, I'm so like all over the place that I want to be that person that can be like, oh, I'm playing with the dog and I'm watching TV and I'm texting on my phone to my best friend weirdo memes about moths and also writing a book. But that takes longer that way. I did write 2,500 words yesterday, which I think is good for me. And I need to keep that up. But, like I said, I took on this Jazz Fest gig, so
I find if I can
I'm insane.
If you get in the discipline of doing a little bit every day, it's fine.
Yep.
But once I hop off the discipline, then I've got to get back. It's kind of like a diet.
Yep.
I've got to get back on it, And
I'm not good with
I was
diets
doing really
or
well
schedules.
with it, and I've been a little bit slack since I got back to New Orleans because I was just like, it's warm here. I want to go outside, and not be stuck
Right.
in the house. But I'm writing my second and last book on witchcraft. It'll be done by 2028 probably. No, it's making good progress. We're getting
That's good.
So, Lilith, I'm going to say we've gone a little over time, but we've started late, so that's fine. So I want to ask you where people can find you, where people can find your work, how they can connect to you, how are they invited to connect to you.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. I like that. Well, you can go on my website, lilithdorsey.com. You can connect with me. I'm really trying to boost my Instagram number. So if you're on Instagram, follow the real me. I have just shy of 10,000 followers. So I'm like, I want to get to that mark so I can do subscription content. And, I've got a Facebook author page. I'm still on Twitter because Black Twitter gives me life. And, or, I'm out there, check out my blog, Voodoo Universe. We're the largest voodoo blog in the world. So even if you can't afford a book, you can go on there. There's over 700 posts. Like, I don't know how I wrote that much, but it's up there and it's all free. So.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to doing another interview with you in the future. Yeah. And we're going to go enjoy New Orleans and do the things that you can't see. Because we're about to leave here and go find a sex addict. A sex addict thing. I should have been doing that for years. Anyway, thank you for joining us. If you have any further questions for Lilith, you can put them in the chat. It'll be on YouTube. She can review it and get back to you there in the future. Or you can contact her on Facebook, right?
Yep. I have a Facebook author page. I'll answer that.
Yeah, only on the author page.
Well, my personal page is my personal page.
Yeah. I wish I knew some people in my life who would keep it that way. Anyway, thanks everyone. Do I know how to end it?